Howdy, students. In this chapter, we're going to focus on why you should care about climate change. Now, we don't care about changes in temperature or precipitation or sea level or anything else for their own sake. Rather, we care about these things because of how it affects people and other things that we do care about. To understand how big the impacts of future climate change might be, let's review what we saw in the last chapter. We see here that we can expect global warming of a few degrees Celsius by 2100. That probably doesn't sound too bad. This slide shows 10 days of temperature from January 2019 in College Station, Texas. Over this period, temperature varied widely from 1 degree Celsius to 23 degrees Celsius, a swing of 22 degrees, or about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the year, temperatures in College Station can vary by 40 degrees Celsius. If you consider the size of the temperature variations that you personally experience, a change in the global average temperature of a few degrees may sound completely negligible, but it's not. Although the temperature in any single place can vary by seemingly huge amounts, the local variations you experience tend to cancel when averaged over the entire globe. Thus, global temperature variations are actually quite small. This is a plot from Chapter 2, and it shows the climate has warmed about 1.3 degrees Celsius in the past 150 years. And it also shows year-to-year variations that are quite small, just a tenth of a degree or two. Thus, global warming of a few degrees Celsius would be extremely significant on this scale. To emphasize this, let me show you what I consider to be the scariest plot in climate science. This plot shows global average temperature extending from the last glacial maximum, the depths of the last ice age 20,000 years ago, through today and 10,000 years into the future. Today, we are here. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will notice something weird going on. Temperature is spiking. Hopefully, you all know what that is. Yeah, it's carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So let's put the fossil fuel era on this plot. Now, the thing I really like about this plot is that it shows you just how small the fossil fuel era is and will be in human history. Humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years and hopefully will continue to exist for hundreds of thousands or millions of future years. And the fossil fuel era is going to be a tiny spark in our human history. It's going to last a few hundred years. It started about 200 years ago. Maybe it'll end in 30 years or 100 years or 200 years, but it's not going to last 1,000 years. We just don't have that much fossil fuels. We saw in the last chapter that despite being a brief spark, fossil fuel combustion will eventually warm the climate by about 3 degrees Celsius. To show you how big this is, let's look at this transition, which is 5 degrees Celsius between 20,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago. This is the difference between an ice age and an interglacial. So, to put it differently, if you cool the planet by 5 degrees, you end up with giant ice sheets on North America. Sea level is 300 feet lower. It's a different world. And if people had pets back then this is what they would have looked like. And if one of these had an accident in the house, you do not want to be the one who has to clean that up. So now we can evaluate how significant this future warming is. If we warm the climate by 3 degrees, we've warmed it 60% of an ice age. This is an enormous amount of warming that will remake the planet. Now, we are here, which is, again, about 1.3 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial. This is how much warming we've already warmed the planet. This is 20% of an ice age. This is a lot of warming, and it's why we can already see big changes in the climate system. But it's even worse than that. It took 10,000 years for the Earth to warm out of the last ice age. That's a warming rate of a few hundredths of a degree per century. Now, compare that to the warming of a few degrees over about 200 years. Predicted warming for this century is 50 times faster than the geologically rapid warming coming out of the last ice age. So we're looking at a huge amount of warming experienced in an incredibly short period of time. This should concern you. On the other hand, you'll sometimes hear people say that we can ignore this problem because the climate has always changed. This is technically true, of course, and humans have survived large climate changes before, such as the transitions into and out of the last few ice ages. However, modern human society, with billions of people living in large urban regions and relying on large-scale infrastructure and agriculture, is only 1 or 2 centuries old. Over that period, the climate has been quite stable. So modern human society has never experienced the kind of climate change that we're predicting for this century. Thus, history doesn't give us any reason to think that climate change will be easy to deal with. In fact, as we'll talk about in this chapter, there are lots of reasons to think that the predicted warming will be a serious challenge for us. We'll pick up here in the next video. We talk about how people actually experience the impacts of climate change. And now, your moment of dog.